And of course, this is your election headquarters, is still on the polls. Now, head of research at the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center, Dr. Kwesi says intemperate language by politicians is recipe for chaos as it presents fertile grounds for terrorists to thrive. He was speaking today as a center after signing an MOU with the African Union to step up training activities and develop infrastructure to combat terrorism.
It's something we worry about. It's something that is on our radar. And it's not just about religion and ethnic identities and the manner in which they are being exploited. It's a fairly also irresponsible statements and the rhetoric, that seeks to create enemy images of the other, that brings about hate speech, that creates the perception that the use of violence is almost a legitimate instrument for the attainment of political power. So that whilst the ethnicity and religious differences are there, if they are not manipulated specifically for political ends, then it's not a problem. But there's another part to this equation that we are not talking about. That is the criminal exploitation of the uncertainties that arise, particularly in an election period, when the political class decides to engage in actions that are politically criminal. Okay, it creates an avenue for economic criminals to also to misbehave. That then puts the police force or service under immense pressure, because sometimes differentiating between clear political actions and criminal actions can be very difficult. Okay, and that is something that we need to have on our horizon. Two other things that I think we need to be conscious of as we head towards the election. One is the manipulation of audio, text, and speech in terms of social media. Okay, in the last 6 months or so, we've had about 2 or 3 instances where audio have been manipulated, where pictures have been manipulated, and I think going forward, we've got to be very conscious of that. The final point relates to our behavior on December 7th. I think people should vote, yes. We should all go out there and do our civic responsibility, but please vote and go home. Don't loiter around, because it's that loitering around that leads to arguments, discussions, and shoving and shuffling that probably can lead to violence. So, those are mine. Thank you. Thank you very much. I think I now just, yeah.
Well, Special Envoy on Counter-Terrorism, Lieutenant Colonel Gbevlo Latte, admits that member states need to invest more in developing such facilities to combat terrorism activities on the continent. He also emphasized how the need for the AU members to research more into the teachings of religious groups to better understand how and why they become training grounds for terrorism.
I think that it's research and study that has brought us where we are now. But you see, the threat there's quite some metamorphosis when it comes to the threat of terrorism. The bad guys want to be a step ahead each time, which means that you can't stop studying, you can't stop researching into what is going on, and you can't stop bringing up, new plans as to how you want to, counter what is going on. For instance, the terrorists tend to use very charismatic people to send messages, and it's across board, whether on the internet or whatever. Now, what is our counter narrative, and who are carrying that counter narrative? These are areas in which there's need for quite some research, and for nation states or member states of the African Union to see what exactly they want to do by way of a counter narrative. If there is a narrative which is encouraging people to, get violent or violent extremism and things like that, then nation states should have a consensus effort, to have a counter narrative as to how, people would, perceive terrorism and perceive counter-terrorism. For instance, how are children brought up? What training are they getting from extremists? And what is the counter? Do we really know what is done in the madrasas or makaranta that we call them? Do we know what they are taught? Do we know who is teaching them? Do we know the purpose for which certain makarantas would be run? These are areas of research that we want to go into and bring some strategies that would address the issue of terrorism more effectively.
Now, residents of Ashalaja say they live in fear due to incessant robbery attacks in their areas.
Ashalaja is one of the biggest communities that make up the Gas South district. The community is a developing one and houses some of Ghana's most industrious men and women. Men and women who struggle through thick and thin to make a living, but their struggle to make it in life is being hampered by the absence of some basic necessities of life. A section of the roads in the town are filled with potholes, making it difficult for residents to commute to and fro. The other part, currently under construction, is filled with dust, a situation residents say is adversely affecting their health.
Our road is very bad from Masaman to Ashalaja. It's very bad. And now we want to plead to construct the road for us. That's the major problem.
But I can see that it is being constructed. Why do you say it's bad?
Yes. Now they have come to, construct the road. That's why.
But the dust is worrying you?
Yes, please, the dust. So we want to plead the entire the road for us.
The roads are very bad. It's dusty. If it's sunny, you cannot even come out. You can see that I'm talking you can hear from my voice that I've got cold. I've stayed here since morning. And I can't even breathe properly. So I'm even thinking of the young ones or the kids who are living with their parents along the road. Everybody will get cold.
I mean the road, there's potholes, plenty potholes, and even that they are on top constructing it, but even it has given a lot of Qatar and others how it is not being quota. So we are begging the contractor to come early and then to quota the road for us, to tar the road for us.
The dust on the road, how does it disturb you?
It disturbs us too much that it gives us Qatar.
The situation is further worsened by the absence of a health post in the area. Residents say several lives have been lost in the area because they have to travel far distances to seek for health care. They say having a health post in the area will inure to their benefit.
We don't have any hospital here.
When you fall sick, what do you do?
Okay, we used to go to Amasaman and others. Even yesterday, somebody was complaining about the stomach pains. Even yesterday, the woman was dead because there's no hospital around to give serious attention to her. So she just lost her life.
The residents also complain about the lack of potable water in the area. The only source of water is the River Densu that passes through the town. The residents say their plea to the Ghana Water Company to help solve this problem has fallen on deaf ears. They want the Ministry of Water Resources, Works and Housing to intervene. Like most developing communities, the absence of a security post in the area is a major concern to these residents who have toiled to acquire their properties. According to them, every week about 4 houses are broken into and properties stolen. They believe the absence of a security post in the area is a reason these attacks keep increasing. The provision of a police post and patrol services, according to the residents, is long overdue.
We live in fear simply because there have been pockets of robbery and attacks, and then stealing of our assets in this town. I have been a victim because my motorbike was stolen here. That's about a year now. Yes. Well, early in the morning, I parked it early in the morning, and then I forgot to have locked it. And then by 3 to 4 early dawn, I was preparing to go to the mosque. I came out, there was no motorbike. We need security in life. If there's no security, then you are living in fear. And life and properties are lost.
There are several containers along the road, and robbers has attacked. I think they cut at the back of the containers, and they robbed certain things inside, what they were selling in it. Well, what we want is that the government should provide us with a police post so that these menaces can be kept here.
We want security here, we want police posts, because about last week, the guys come break some of our friend shop, So always you hear today this. If you have something, then the thieves come and take it away. We don't know the reason why. But if you have a police post here, you'll be free.
We discussed this issue with the Chief Executive of Ghana South and the Commander of Amasman Police District Headquarters. So they asked us to prepare, and by preparing we have to find a land location where the police station can be placed at. So we call, and the police, the chief executive and his members came down. So we proposed a nearby, just at the junction where the taxi rank is, to place the police station. So about 3 weeks ago or so, 1 month, the chief executive came and cut the sod to let the police station take off. And according to them, we have to do it something like district police headquarters, whereby we need the building plan from the chief executive. So we tried, but we saw that there's no time there. So we have to prepare one ourselves. So we pay the architect and prepare one for us. I have to give a copy to the chief executive and send one to police headquarters for readiness. But already we have discussed with the youth and those sellers around the road and in the town to help us to put up this police station, and they are willing to do it.
While they wait for the Ghana Police Service to come to their aid, the residents have set up watchdog committees to fortify the area. But these committees appear helpless as they lack the requisite training and logistics to combat crime in the area.
Well, across Ghana, there is massive growth and expansion in infrastructure, both in the public and private sectors of the economy. Now, projects are emerging in different parts of the country, from high-rise buildings to recreational parks, but there is a disaster scare. The Architects Registration Council of Ghana has warned of grave consequences if the country's population does not match up to architects in the planning and development of the environment. Now, in the following report, journalist Latif Idris explores the level of involvement of Ghana's architects in the development of the country's built environment.
Ghana's built environment continues to see a sharp rise as new facilities like schools, hospitals, high-rise office, residential complexes, and recreational parks continue to spring up. There is, however, concern that the construction of many of these facilities have been done without the crucial input of the master builders, the architects.
Here at Opebia, we have a major intersection with different roads leading you to various parts of the national capital and out of it. The road behind me leads you straight to the Tetakwashi roundabout and out of Accra. This very one leads you to 37, which takes you straight to Accra, and the very one in front of me will take you straight to Kaokudi and other parts of the capital. But the unfortunate thing is that if you look around here, there are no signages at all telling you where a particular road leads to. So if you are a visitor and you are in town, your guess is as good as mine. It is highly likely you get missing.
Right from the start, many projects lack certain basics of construction and planning. No directional signs on roads, lack of proper divisions on roads under construction. That's not all. There is also the difficulty in using footbridges in Ghana. Even though the newly constructed bridges have provisions made for both the physically challenged and the able-bodied, there aren't any of such provisions made for the old ones that continue to serve a good number of the population. Places of worship also fall short of the barrier-free concept. The 2000 Mosque in Adabraka, a suburb of Accra, has this long staircase as the main access route for worshippers who visit the mosque. The situation makes the facility inaccessible to the physically challenged. The development, according to the registrar of the Architects Registration Council of Ghana, Stella Na Jagble Ahiaba, is because Ghanaians have over the years failed to value the place of architects in the country's built environment. She, however, warns that the larger population could pay gravely if the trend continues.
The architect begins with a concept and carries it through, and so many factors are considered in coming up with a concept and in designing a house. The lay person may see lines, a lot of lines, but every line has a meaning. Every symbol on the drawing has a meaning, and leaving out any one of them brings a lot of cost to lives, cost to property, cost to investment. If a building is designed or a building is constructed without the involvement of an architect, you may see the building beautiful on the outside, but functionally, how does it work? A lot of people have developed sicknesses and diseases not because of anything, but because of the building they live in.
Can we then safely say that the collapse we've had over the years can be attributed to the fact that we've not taken into consideration the work or the role of architects?
Largely, because architects work with engineers. The architect does the design. The architect decides where the building columns should be. The architect decides where beams should be and all that, and then the engineer details it out. Most times in the course of construction, people decide to engage builders and leave out the architects and the engineers, and so the builders, through whatever, decide to cut corners. They put up the building, and the strength, that the building would have been designed from the beginning is not adhered to. You understand? So buildings are put up and they collapse. Now, where there is a problem, even if an engineer is on a project, we always make room for escape. Every building must have an escape route. Where buildings have not been designed by architects, you find out that most times they don't have any room. And then where engineers also consider what we call safety factor. In designing a structure, they work out some allowances. Where these have been shortchanged, you find out that the buildings are there. They have not been built according to what has been designed, or they have not been designed for in the first place because the client has decided to cut costs by going to somebody else who is not trained for. And then you find out that these buildings come down, and you know what happens. People lose their lives.
That notwithstanding, a few facilities have been built to be accessible to all. The Accra Mall is one of the few complying with the concept, with directional signs strategically positioned to aid patrons. A baby changing room and a toilet facility for persons with disability. The coaches of the train that plies Accra to Tema also has a place for persons from all walks of life.
When the law on persons with disability, the Act on Persons with Disability, Act 715, was passed, government gave a 10-year moratorium that every facility, every public facility should be disability friendly. And that grace period ended in August this year. We have seen that people have put in ramps, and at various places. But it is not only ramps that are needed. As I said, there are some persons who do not have fingers, but they have legs. They can climb the steps, but they don't have fingers. So how do they turn the doorknob to enter a public place? You understand? So what we are advocating is that it is not only ramps. It is not only ramps, but there are more, to it. Doorknobs. Even there are people who are blind. They can walk, but they are blind. How easy do we make facilities, available to them? We have tactile marks that help them to know that they are changing level, or that help them to know that there is a door here. We have door sensors and all that. So all those things are part.
The concept of barrier-free is well taken care of by this facility, giving people from all walks of life, regardless of your physical disability or otherwise, accessibility to the National Museum of Science and Technology is unparalleled.
People with disability, when they come around, we make sure that we have enough materials as science exhibits for them to see.
How about people who are deaf?
Yeah, the people, no, for the blind people, as I told you, they come with people who are the guardians. So we try to explain some of the things to them, and some of them we even try to put what we call the braille, with the, especially with the science and tech exhibition. Braille was also added so that when they come, and then they can also read some of the tests, understand some of the things that are there, apart from the information the curators and the educational officer will be giving them. So
now here we have staircase.
Well, in Accra, a ceremony was held today to mark International Architect Day. Now, architect Alexander Boache Mafo spoke to Joy News on the possible lawsuits that await those who fail to comply with the building regulation. He spoke to Hanodame.
100% barrier-free environment means that 0% security. You can just imagine that. But there's, because of act of terrorism, act of vandalism, act of other things, in some way, somehow, places, because of security issues, have to have some level of restriction. But through technology and through design, these restrictions have to have its own counter solution.
Do you think Ghana can actually have a barrier-free environment as you wish?
I would say a degree of barrier-free environment, yes, it is possible.
It's possible. Have we reached any so far?
No.
What percentage are we, if I should ask?
Currently, maybe we are around 45%.
45,
yes.
After 10 years?
I don't have any scientific evidence right now to generalize it for every place. But what I'm saying that based on what we found from the initial study, we realize that there's a lot of room for improvement in that there are provisions which are, we think, we just need a little, not so much, just a little, and it will be actually good.
At the end of today's program, which you're celebrating and you do every year, what exactly do you want to see in terms of making buildings and infrastructures accessible, approachable, and friendly to the persons living with disabilities?
What we would be very happy to see as a university and also an institution training architects is that almost all the facilities should actually allow themselves to be assessed, so that you'll be told and you'll be informed that, okay, you need this, you need that, to actually make your place much more accessible, because they might not get 100%, but if they get 75% or 70%, that means that we are almost getting to the green stick for our barrier-free traffic lights. So that eventually, if you get 75% or 80%, that means that a number of persons can access your facilities.
Now, Emma Lillian Bruce Lyle cites the lack of building code as a reason for the ineffective implementation of the divisibility law. Now, she wants architects to be empowered to prevent the construction of structures when owners refuse to comply with the Adversibility Act.
We hit a wall once in our compliance, and when the NY road was being constructed with the overheads, we realized that the persons with disability have not been taken care of. So people, that is the members of the federation, went there to demonstrate. Unfortunately, the police went after them. So you can see that the law enforcement agencies themselves do not even know what the Disability Act is about.
But before we move further from that, who is to be blamed for the non-compliance to this law that was passed 10 years ago? Is it the architects, is it the individuals, or the lawmakers?
Well, it is the people who are putting up the service. I won't fault the architect, because the architect's role is to give advice to the client who has his or her money
Shouldn't the architect be empowered to ensure that if I'm your architect and I'm supposed to ensure that you have a disability-friendly facility in your building and you don't, I can choose not to continue with you or probably report you to a certain agency for action to be taken.
There was no code for them to follow. So that is why we have contacted the Standards Authority to come up with building code, that when it is sent to Parliament and Parliament passes it, then they can enforce it.
Well, the celebration was under the theme Universal Designs, Barrier-Free Concepts in Ghana. You're still on the polls here on the Joy News channel. We'll take a short break. We'll be right back with sports. Stay with us.